Welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Calling for the courts to consider the primacy of the quality of the December 9, 2015 general elections and not just the quantity of the votes. Opposition leader and president of the New Democratic Party, NDP, Arnim Eustace, in an address to the nation last evening, lamented that the conduct of the elections was not lawful. In his speech, looking at the status of petitions filed with respect to the elections held in Central Leeward and North Windward on December 9, 2015, Eustace questioned the handling of the votes by the Supervisor of Elections, Sylvia Finley Scrub, and returning officers Winston Games for Central Leeward and Will Davis for North Windward, among other presiding officers. Eustace outlined that elections in the country is governed by the Representation of the People's Act, and with examples of the ballots on screen from the 1994 election, he compared the ballots of the 2015 general elections and noted that under Rule 15, Section 2C, every ballot should contain a space reserved for the initials and official stamp of the presiding officer.
Take a look at this ballot, which was used in the 1994 election in Western Georgia. It complies completely with the ballot in Form 7 of the rules. Examine it closely. It contains a space reserved for the initials and official mark of the presiding officer. The counterfoil is clearly shown. Now take a look at the ballot used in the 2015 election in Central Leeward. As you can see, it can be divided into the same parts, the counterfoil and the ballot itself. There is also a space reserved for the initial and stamp of the presiding officer.
The opposition leader also expressed concern that the counterfoils under Rule 31(2) and Rule 40, Section 1A were not valid and should not have been counted because the proper procedures, according to him, were not followed, claiming that the 2015 general election ballots were defective in design.
At the count of the ballot, any which does not appear the official mark shall be void and not counted. Listen to the language. Shall be void and not may. Shall be void and not counted. Let us take a second look at the ballots now that the counterfoils have been removed and they are being viewed at the count. Do you see the difference now? Of course you do. The 2015 ballot does not include a space for the official mark and the initials of the presiding officer. Therefore, the 2015 ballot is defective in design. By placing the space reserved for the official mark in the counterfoil instead of on the ballot, in breach of the law, the 2015 ballot, if complied with by the presiding officer, render your vote invalid. Quite simply, it prevents the ballot being confirmed as the ballot the presiding officer actually gave to the voter.
The NDP leader also claims that 321 voters at 2 polling stations in Layu were disenfranchised as they should not have been counted, despite claims the NDP candidate for Central Leeward, Benjamin Exeter, called for the ballots to be still counted. And Eustace also expressed concern about the safekeeping of the election documents. He queried why documents were still in the possession of the Electoral Office and the Supervisor of Elections while the electoral petition cases were brought against them.
I can harbor no confidence that the ballots, counterfoils, and other election documents ought to remain in the custody of the Supervisor of Elections. There is nothing so cynical and ultimately so unjust as what the Supervisor of Elections and others are attempting right now. Rather than allow the petitions to be tried in court on their merits, they are asking the court to throw them out on a technicality so that you, the people, will never see and hear. And the court will never see and hear and consider the body of evidence we have amassed in respect of the petitions. Right now, as I speak, the court has been asked to throw out, dismiss, strike out the petitions because they consider that the sureties were not properly referred to when they signed the sureties.
In other news, the St. Vincent Shipyard Limited, formerly the Otley Hall Marina, is refuting accusations by the National Workers Movement, the NWM, that their workers are being treated unfairly. SVG-TV news team made a site visit and interviewed the company's director, Daniel Roverty, who questioned the motive of the General Secretary of the National Workers Movement, Noel Jackson. Roverty stated that Jackson has seemingly begun a smear campaign against the company and that the board of directors has written to him that the union has no signed agreement with the company. He outlined some of the areas whereby Jackson was breaking the regulations of the supposed signed collective agreement, such as the use of no propaganda in disputes. He noted that there are also matters in the agreement that are not practical and needs to be revisited, such as the halting of operation at 10 a.m.
We have here a 15-minute breaks at 10 a.m. for all the workers. We cannot stop production in this kind of business. That's stopping production. Maybe this can work on Binlek. Maybe this can work with the Port Authority, which they have schedules, and most of the service is provided by machines because generation is by engines. And the workers just have to be monitoring that these engines are working. So you can have redundancy and the people can take the time. But when I have a job welding here with a client on my back, ask me for a schedule, because we work with schedules on vessels. We have limits by performance, we have hours and times to do our jobs. When I'm working with this kind of thing, and I have a client on my back who really wants the job finished because it's vessels that we're talking about, how are you going to stop me the entire production with all my workers at 10 a.m., which is the most productive hour, not by me, saying by the international labor people?
The director of the St. Vincent Shipyard Limited says that their goal is to make the marina internationally renowned.
To see this place make a hint for the entire Caribbean. We want to make Otley Hall a well-renowned place, because where the European goes, they go to the Philippines, they go to Malaysia. That's really expensive. They have to fly a lot of hours. It's a really lousy trip and all this stuff. The Caribbean is cheaper. The Caribbean is nicer. But we need to develop all the places, and we need to develop all the situations in a big scale to get that. And I think that the grain of sand that we can put as an OEC member, as a CARICOM member, is starting developing this place, making it up to international standards.
In an earlier interview with SVG-TV News, the General Secretary of the National Workers Movement, Noel Jackson, stated that the time for idle talks with the company is over, as the union has made several efforts to have the collective agreements renewed with the company to no avail, and that they will continue to look out for what is in the best interest of their members. The inaugural meeting of the board of the Zero Hunger Trust Fund will take place here on Wednesday, April 6, 2016 at the Ministry of Economic Planning. That's according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves at a media conference yesterday, as he updated Vincentians on his travels and other major government initiatives, noting that indigence and undernourishment have been reduced under the ULP administration. Dr. Gonsalves outlined that the Zero Hunger Initiative will continue to work on this, and they will continue to work on this area with a board now in place to assist with the enhancement and implementation of the initiative.
And the law states that the Director of Planning will be the Director of the Fund. And we have a good board. The person who has agreed to be chairman is Derry Williams, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's an independent board. I I'm required in naming one person to the board to consult with the leader of the opposition. I've written a letter to him consulting him. I haven't seen as yet any response. If there's no response, I will proceed because I would have and have the person named because I would have consulted him. He doesn't have to appoint the person. I do the appointing, but I do the consultation with him. So I've done the consultation, it's a reasonable time that I would have given if he doesn't respond, and I will do what is required of me under the law. And as soon as the Zero Hunger, this board meets, they will set up their bank account and everything, do all the formalities, and I'll then issue them a check of 1 month of my basic salary as I had pledged towards this very important initiative.
The Prime Minister further added that despite the harsh criticisms towards the initiative, his government will continue its work in uplifting the standard of living for all Vincentians.
This is an area where we have to be even more creative. So while we are seeking to go for job growth, economic growth, creation of wealth with all of the things which I talked about a little earlier, we must never lose sight of the fact that the least among us, we have to always try to protect them and lift them up and create opportunities for them to lead self-sustaining lives. They don't come up with anything, you know. They don't come up with anything whatsoever. But you come up with something. And mark my word, the Zero Hunger Trust Fund will, in a not too distant future, become a model and will be used by other countries in the region to deal with, in a highly targeted manner, in a very specific way, with persons who may go to bed hungry at night.
The Director of Trade, Cuthbert Knights, is of the view that to address consumer issues, an integrated approach is needed by all stakeholders. Knights was earlier this week addressing a training workshop looking at competition, consumer protection laws and policies at the Beachcombers Hotel. He told the gathering that although a lot of work has been done in the area of competition law and consumer protection, much more needs to be done.
In recognition of this competition policy as well as consumer protection policy has been an integral part of the work of policymakers in the region. The architect of CARICOM quite wisely envisages competition law and consumer protection law as significant prerequisites for the effective implementation of the CARICOM single market and economy. One cannot discuss the CAREX or even competition and consumer policy issues without examining what are some of the trends and emerging issues that can impact on consumer protection.
The trade director says with the Caribbean being heavily dependent on tourism, visitors expect to have some level of protection in the region as consumers of services and also of goods when they visit these shores.
Only the tourists who visit would need some measures of protection as consumer of goods and services, but there are investors who are investing as well in our local economies, and they would expect that there will be the necessary regulatory framework which can provide a conducive atmosphere for them to compete in the marketplace. For example, there have been substantial investment in financial services by way of foreign direct investment in our region. As a community, it is imperative that we put in place measures that promote healthy competition among providers of goods and services. Thus, consumers benefit from efforts of companies or persons in their quest to satisfy a market by providing high-ended quality goods and services at competitive price, and very significantly, without significantly impacting or sacrificing consumer well-being.
A greater value must be placed on persons who blaze the trail on behalf of all Vincentians. That was the call made by trade unionist Noel Jackson as members of the Spiritual Baptist Church, trade union members, as well as the family of this country's first Chief Minister, Ebenezer Theodore Joshua, held a ceremony yesterday in remembrance of his life and accomplishments. Speaking at a ceremony at the Kingston Cemetery, Jackson says Joshua was a champion of the poor who brought to St. Vincent and the Grenadines what modern trade unionism is all about. He added that the independence of SVG should be credited to the work of Joshua, which qualifies him for the status of national hero.
And we wonder sometimes that if E.T. Joshua did not come to St. Vincent and establish such an agenda, would we have gained independence on the 27th of October, 1979? Or if it would have been closer to this time, or if it would have been something like the British Virgin Islands. You wonder. You ask the question. And if you cannot present me with a credible answer, there goes one of the fundamental qualifications for national hero status.
Jackson also called on Vincentians to give greater value to aspects of local heritage and culture, as well as persons who gave of themselves to build the country, noting that he is hopeful that Joshua will be immortalized as the second national hero of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Value our people a little more than that, to add value. I have traveled numerous parts, and things that we take here for granted, things that we allow to wash down the gutters, people have them put away in museums, so on and so forth. We need to do a little better than we are doing in recognition of our culture, in recognition of the work of the people who has blazed the trail on our behalf. As Brother Tibbles indicated, that very soon we may very well have a second national hero. I don't have to tell you again who is my hero. And I hope that when the choice is made, that Ebenezer Theodore Joshua will be immortalized as the second national hero of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Also making remarks at the ceremony was Archbishop Johnny Jones, head of the Mount Carmel Spiritual Baptist Church, who called Joshua a true hero of the Spiritual Baptists as he fought for their rights and cause in Parliament. Reiterating the call for Joshua to be named a national hero, Bishop Jones highlighted some of the important policies which Joshua fought to implement, which he says continues to be of benefit to Vincentians today.
Jackson is one, and he would have reminded us of so much benefit, if not us, our children to come, or somebody connected to us. So therefore we must remember the man. Joshua is the one who bring on back pay, and many of us benefit from back pay. Mr. Jackson, you can remind me. Holiday with pay. Yes, sir. And sick leave. Joshua. Yes. That's the man who stirred up the ants' nest that today it's in place.
creating history as the first batch of fire officers to be assigned to the soon-to-be operational Argyle International Airport. 28 participants officially graduated from the Firefighting Course 1 at the Old Montrose Police Station. Congratulating the officers, Commissioner of Police Michael Charles noted that he is certain that the officers have acquired great knowledge and is looking forward to seeing this knowledge put in practice. He also urged them to take what they have learned very seriously, as they now has a heavy responsibility.
We is in March, and March is historic month in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And what is significant about this is that you 28 participants in this course, you're marching into history. After 2 weeks of Mr. Cook's menu, I am certain that your firefighting appetite is well satisfied. In the event that God forbid something to happen, that you will put what you've been taught into practice. And I can guarantee and assure Mr. Cook that with Fire Chief Brown, James, and the others, this training will continue, and your students will not lose touch.
A facilitator of the course, U.S.-based Fire Lieutenant Walter Cook, expressed his satisfaction in sharing his knowledge with the participants and getting good reception. Cook said that it is his hope that what was learned will be put into action, as all the officers are capable of doing a good job.
At least I said when I leave, I'm not done training. So this is just a tip. I usually don't always talk at the graduations. I'm here to deliver and share the information until the day the Lord has other plans for me. When I leave, I want the fire service, all of you, making history. All of the tax money, all of the money that's being paid for this service, they've got to see the results. And I know when I leave here what they're going to see. History being made. Congratulations again.
Noting that the graduation of the officers marks a major achievement towards the operation of the Argyle International Airport, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Godfrey Pompey, outlined that provisions are already in place for the officers at the airport with the completion of a modern fire station. He further thanked the International Airport Development Company, the IADC, and the RSVG Police Force for taking up the initiative to have the officers undergone such an important training.
The modern firefighting facility at Argyle has been completed, and I'm advised that during the course of next week, the police department will take possession, ensuring that all equipment and furnishing are in place. We do look forward to you translating your skills to the new facility. You'll have a few months to acquaint yourself with the new firefighting equipment and facility at Argyle. So by the time you're ready to operationalize the airport, things will be in place. So you'll be in total readiness. Again, on my behalf and the ministry's behalf, I thank you for your eagerness and willingness to participate in this training.
This country's jail population now stands at 446 inmates. This was disclosed by Supervisor of Prisons Brenton Charles while he delivered the jail status yesterday at the High Court in Kingston at the closing of the assizes. According to the list that was published of the prison status, there are now 354 males and 2 females serving sentence. 86 males and 4 females are on remand. 129 males and 1 female sentenced by the High Court, and 225 males and 1 female sentenced by the Magistrate Court. There is a total of 28 non-nationals serving sentences. Patrick Loveless, who was sentenced to death several years ago for the murder of Lakeisha Nanton of Sandhill, is the lone prisoner on death row. The second leg of the 2016 High Court criminal session is expected to commence on April 5th, 2016. This man, Raphael O'Neill, is wanted by the RSVG police force in connection with a series of burglaries. O'Neill, aka Sankey, is a 31-year-old laborer of Vermont and stands at 5'1" with dark complexion and brown eyes, with the words "Death Row" tattooed on his right hand. O'Neill is said to have a round face and thick lips. Police are cautioning persons to approach the subject with caution, and anyone with information of his whereabouts is asked to contact the officer in charge of the Western Division at telephone numbers 4587-239, 4561810 or 451-71211 or any police station across SVG. The Annisville Covenant Assembly is inviting the public for a special series of service under the theme 7 Days to Victory, celebrating the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Saturday is expected to be a special event for couples, as the focus will be on relationship, love, and respect.
Now this Saturday, at 9 a.m. at the Annisville Covenant Assembly, we are inviting couples to come out and join us as we are having what is called a counseling seminar, and our theme for that seminar is love and respect. The love she most desires, the respect he desperately needs, how we can help couples, how we could help you in your marriage during your time. If you are dating, if you are courting, this seminar is just for you. Come and join with us during this week as we all celebrate together in the crucifixion and the resurrection of the Lord Jesus.